They're faking it. 4 clues your ex isn't over you. Yet, so your ex says they've moved on, they look happy on Instagram, they stopped texting you, and maybe they're even seeing someone new, but deep down, something feels off. Ever wonder if they're just pretending? In this video, we're exposing the truth behind the act. Backed by real psychological insights, we'll walk you through 4 major clues that reveal your ex isn't actually over you, no matter how cool or distant they seem. From subtle behaviors like stalking your social media to dramatic displays of living their best life, we're going to break down what really drives these mixed signals. Spoiler alert: indifference is the real sign someone has moved on. Drama, emotional outbursts, and performative happiness, that's not peace, that's pretending. Let's get into the signs. Let's talk about the first and most obvious clue your ex isn't over you. They just can't fully let go. Now, you'd think when someone says, "it's over," they'd follow that up with action. Silence, space, closure. But some exes? They linger, quietly, subtly, but deliberately. Take texting, for example. If they're still messaging you about random, irrelevant stuff like, "do you remember the name of that song we played on that trip?" or "what detergent did we use again?" It's not about the question. It's a low-risk excuse to reopen the line of communication. They're creating opportunities to reconnect without having to admit they miss you. And then there's the "let's still be friends" talk. Sure, friendships after breakups can happen, but when it's offered right after the relationship ends, it's usually not about friendship, it's about emotional access. They're hoping to soften the blow of separation, not just for you, but for themselves. Staying in your life keeps the door cracked open just in case. Watch for the accidental meetups too. If you keep bumping into them at your regular coffee spot, gym, bookstore, be honest with yourself. Is that really coincidence? If it happens more than once, it's probably not random. Psychologically, people return to places of emotional association when they're longing for connection. Showing up where they know they'll see you, that's them placing themselves back in your orbit. And they might not even do it themselves. They may use others, mutual friends, your siblings, even your dog sitter. If you suddenly start hearing, "hey, your ex was just asking about you," or their friends check in out of nowhere, that's surveillance disguised as concern. Experts call this proxy communication. When someone uses a third party to get updates, they don't feel comfortable asking you directly. And let's not forget social media stalking. One of the clearest, most consistent signs your ex isn't over you is when they silently hover on your digital life. If they're the first to view your Instagram stories within minutes of you posting them, but never like or comment, they're watching, carefully, intentionally. That kind of lurking isn't casual browsing, it's emotional checking in. They want to know what you're doing, how you're coping, who you're with, without having to say a word. Now, some might argue maybe they're just being polite. But here's the truth. Real indifference doesn't check your story within 30 seconds. Real indifference doesn't look for ways to stay connected. Real indifference walks away, quietly and completely. So if your ex is texting you, watching your every post, accidentally running into you, or using friends as messengers, it's not because they're friendly. It's because they haven't truly let go. And whether they admit it or not, those small actions speak louder than any "I'm over it" ever could. Now let's get into clue number 2. They're trying way too hard to act like they're over you. This is what we call overcompensating, and it's a classic move for someone still emotionally entangled. So how does this show up? First, let's talk about their sudden social media glow-up. If your ex used to post once a month and now suddenly they're uploading gym selfies, inspirational quotes, travel pics, group shots at parties, they're not just documenting their life, they're broadcasting a message. "Look how amazing I'm doing without you." And the question is, why the show? If they were truly at peace, they wouldn't need to prove it to anyone, especially not to you. But overcompensation is a psychological smokescreen. It's not confidence, it's control. They're trying to manage how you perceive them. In fact, experts say a sudden spike in online activity post-breakup is one of the most common emotional defense strategies. It's like they're using social media as a stage, playing a character who's thriving, when inside, they might be falling apart. Then there's the rebound effect. If your ex suddenly flaunts a new relationship, especially one that started right after the breakup, it could be more about you than their new partner. They post pictures together, change profile pics, comment #blessed under couple photos, but the timing feels forced. And sometimes, it's not even subtle. They might pick someone who's your total opposite or eerily similar to you. They want you to see it. They want a reaction. Because if you're jealous, it means they still matter to you. And that's what they're fishing for, emotional proof they still have a grip on your heart. But this behavior often backfires. Rebounds started out of spite, revenge, or ego usually don't last, because they're built on insecurity, not connection. Your ex may even end up hurting an innocent person just to make a point. Next, look at their attitude in person or through messages. If they go out of their way to say things like, "I've never been happier," or "Honestly, breaking up was the best decision I've ever made," it might sound confident, but it reeks of insecurity. If they truly felt that way, they wouldn't feel the need to say it so loudly. And don't forget the inconsistencies. You might see them laughing and thriving on social media, only to bump into them looking drained, disengaged, or even anxious. That contrast is telling. It's the emotional mask slipping, and when it does, you see the real picture. Someone who's still struggling more than they let on. Finally, remember this: truly healed people don't need to prove they've healed. They live their life quietly, peacefully, no big shows, no dramatic declarations, just progress. So if your ex is suddenly performing happiness like it's an Olympic sport, that's not healing, that's theater. And deep down they're likely still hurting, still watching, and still pretending. Here's the thing: the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And if your ex is constantly swinging between intense emotions, it's a clear sign they're not over you. Let's start with anger. If your ex lashes out at you, picks fights, or seems bitter every time you interact, that's not emotional closure, that's unresolved pain. Experts say that lingering anger is often just hurt in disguise. They're still grieving, still stuck in the story of what went wrong, and that frustration has to go somewhere. Jealousy is another major giveaway. If you've started seeing someone new and your ex gets snarky, possessive, or tries to downplay your relationship, that's not nothing. An ex who's truly moved on doesn't care who you date. But if they do, that's emotional residue. Then there's the nostalgia. If your ex keeps bringing up old memories, "Remember that trip?" or "I miss our late night talks," they're dipping back into the emotional well. It may come off as casual, even jokey, but humor is often how people mask vulnerability. If they're reminiscing, they're still emotionally anchored to the past. Pay attention to inconsistency too. One day they're warm, maybe even flirty, the next cold and distant. That hot and cold routine is usually a sign they don't know what they want, or they do, but they're scared to admit it. And let's not ignore the late-night drunk texts or calls. The 2 a.m. "I miss you" isn't a coincidence. As the old saying goes, a drunk mind speaks a sober heart. If this happens more than once, it's likely they're still deeply attached, just hiding it behind the buzz. Bottom line, strong emotions, whether angry, jealous, sentimental, or erratic, aren't signs of detachment. They're proof that feelings are still very much alive. Clue number 4, their life hasn't really moved forward since the breakup. One of the clearest signs your ex is still emotionally stuck is when they avoid wrapping up the practical stuff, like picking up their things or returning yours. If they've left belongings at your place and keep delaying collecting them, it's often not forgetfulness, it's resistance. Holding on to these loose ends is their way of holding on to the relationship. You might also notice they still keep mementos, photos, gifts, or posts with both of you intact. These aren't just keepsakes. Psychologists refer to them as transitional objects. They bring comfort when someone can't let go emotionally. If they really wanted to start fresh, those reminders would be gone. And what about new relationships? Sometimes they haven't entered one at all. Other times, they're in a rebound that seems rushed, unstable, or oddly shallow. In some cases, their new partner may even act threatened by you. Why? Because your ex is still emotionally entangled, and it shows. Even beyond dating, their life may feel paused. Maybe they're still living in the same place you chose together. Still hanging with your circle of friends, still bringing you up in conversations. If it feels like they haven't turned the page, that's because they haven't. And here's something subtle but powerful: dramatic avoidance. Blocking you on everything, ghosting hard, cutting you off in a way that feels performative. Sometimes that isn't detachment, it's denial. It's their way of trying to force themselves to move on when they're still very much not over it. So if your ex's life looks like it's stuck in the shadow of your relationship, you don't need to guess. They haven't moved on, they're just pretending to. So we've gone over the signs. But now let's look under the hood. Why would someone pretend they're over you when they're not? It seems pointless, until you understand the psychology behind it. First, self-protection and pride. The first, and perhaps most common reason, ego. Breakups are brutal to the self-image. Whether they initiated it or not, your ex might be hurting, but showing that would feel like defeat. Pretending to be over you becomes a defense mechanism, a way to shield themselves from vulnerability. This is especially common in people with avoidant personalities or those raised in environments where showing emotion was seen as weakness. Society also reinforces this. Men, for example, are often expected to move on fast and not dwell, yet studies show they often suffer more after breakups due to lack of emotional support. Instead of reaching out or processing emotions openly, they shut down and perform indifference. Behind the "I'm totally fine" is often someone deeply uncomfortable with emotional exposure. Second, fear of reconciliation pressure. Another reason? They're afraid of being pulled back in. Your ex might still care, but they believe the breakup was necessary. Maybe the relationship had real problems, maybe it was toxic, maybe it just wasn't the right time. If they fear that showing any weakness or sadness might make you reach out, try again, or reopen old doors, they put up a wall. They act fine not because they are, but because they don't trust themselves to stay strong if you came knocking. This is especially likely if after the breakup you were reaching out a lot. Their fake indifference might be a shield to keep both of you from relapsing into something unhealthy. Third, emotional denial and confusion. Sometimes the pretending isn't even fully conscious. Your ex might genuinely believe they're over it, because denial is easier than truth. Maybe the relationship ended under stress or circumstances that felt out of their control. They might not want to admit they're still attached, especially if it makes them feel weak, foolish, or conflicted. So they suppress, repress, bury it. But as time goes on, cracks show. The social media lurking, the mood swings, the random texts at 1 a.m, those are all signs their feelings are still there, no matter how deep they've tried to bury them. Fourth, social and external pressure. Breakups don't happen in a vacuum. Sometimes your ex pretends to be over you not for you, but for everyone else. Maybe their friends said they dodged a bullet, maybe their family never liked the relationship. They're surrounded by voices cheering the breakup on, so they wear the mask of peace, even when they're crumbling. They feel obligated to validate the decision, even if it wasn't fully their own. Admitting they're still hurting or confused would mean confronting outside judgment, and not everyone's ready to do that. Fifth, personality and attachment styles. Psychologists agree, how people behave after a breakup has a lot to do with their attachment style. Avoidant types tend to suppress emotions, distract themselves with work, hobbies, or dating apps, and act overly fine. But that doesn't mean they're actually healed, it just means they're dodging the grief. Anxious types may go the opposite route, oversharing, panicking, or, more sneakily, pretending to be fine just to spark a reaction from you. They'll mirror your behavior to stay emotionally connected, even if it's performative. Everyone copes differently, but in most cases, faking it is just a temporary fix for unresolved emotions. Sixth, they want control without vulnerability. Finally, here's a hard truth. Some exes pretend they're over you to keep the power dynamic in their favor. If they show no emotion, they feel in control. If you're the one wondering, second-guessing, feeling unsure, they win. It's a psychological power play, one where they don't have to ask you back, but they also don't have to face the full emotional loss. They might not want you back, but they want to know you still want them. That kind of behavior isn't about healing, it's about ego. Bottom line, pretending to be over someone isn't random. It's almost always a coping strategy, designed to protect the person from pain, judgment, or emotional vulnerability. But here's the kicker. It's not your job to decode their defense mechanisms. Understanding their reasons gives you clarity, yes, but it doesn't mean you should wait around or take the bait. Their act is about them. Your healing, that's about you. By now, maybe you've seen the signs. The mixed messages, the emotional extremes, the performative "I'm fine" act. So, what now? Step 1, stop waiting for their behavior to make sense. It's tempting to keep reading into everything, every text, every story view, every post, but their confusion shouldn't control your clarity. If they're not communicating directly, their signals are noise, not guidance. Step 2, go no contact. Seriously, no texts, no replies, no just checking in messages, no watching their stories, no accidental likes. Relationship experts agree that a solid 30 to 60 days of total no contact is one of the most effective ways to reclaim your emotional stability. Why? Because it breaks the addiction loop. Every little interaction with your ex gives your brain a dopamine hit, and it keeps you hooked. Cutting off communication allows both of you to reset emotionally. And if they really have something real to say, they'll reach out in a real way. If not, you don't need the breadcrumbs anyway. Step 3. Ask yourself what you really want. Do you want them back, or do you just want them to want you back? Be honest. It's easy to confuse the pain of rejection with actual love. If the relationship ended for real, legitimate reasons, don't let flattery pull you back into something unhealthy. Wanting someone who still wants you is human, but wanting peace is more powerful. If you do believe there's hope, if both of you have done the work, and the connection was meaningful, then and only then should you consider opening the door. And even then, it should come through honest communication, not vague signals or emotional games. Step 4. Don't play games to match theirs. Posting thirst traps to make them jealous. Going out of your way to be seen. Pretending to be fine just to get a reaction. It might feel satisfying short term, but it just keeps you emotionally entangled. Healing isn't about winning the breakup. It's about reclaiming your energy. Step 5. Set boundaries, and actually enforce them. If your ex keeps showing up, texting, calling late at night, or leaning on you emotionally, you're allowed to say no. You're allowed to block them. You're allowed to protect your peace. A boundary isn't punishment. It's protection. It tells the world and yourself what you will and won't tolerate. And often it's the only way to force your ex to either step up or finally step back. Step 6. Don't confuse their emotions with a real plan. Just because they're still attached doesn't mean they're ready, or healthy, or serious. Emotion without action is just noise. If they're not coming to you directly, with accountability, with maturity, and with a plan, then whatever they're doing is about them, not you. Don't let their lack of closure keep you stuck in limbo. Step 7. Prioritize your own growth. Get out of the emotional echo chamber. Talk to a therapist. Journal. Reconnect with friends. Pour your energy into something that builds you, not breaks you. Because here's the truth. The more you invest in your own healing, the less their behavior will shake you. Whether they come back one day, or they fade out for good, you win either way. Because you chose growth, you chose peace, you chose you, and that's not pretending, that's power. So, is your ex really over you, or just pretending? Let's recap. If they're keeping in touch without a real reason, if they're posting their perfect life a little too loudly, if they're swinging from angry to nostalgic, or if their life seems frozen in time since the breakup, then yeah, they're probably faking it. But here's the thing. That doesn't mean you should go running back. Their unresolved feelings are theirs to deal with, not your responsibility to fix. The most powerful thing you can do? Keep your focus on yourself. Heal, grow, move forward for real. Whether or not your ex circles back, you'll be in the right place, strong, grounded, and clear about what you deserve. Because indifference, not drama, is the real end of a relationship. And if they're still creating drama, the story might not be over for them, but for you, it can be. Enjoyed this video? Like, comment, and subscribe for more just like it.